We're very fortunate this afternoon to have James Joeriman, who is president of the Rotary Club Lviv International. President Joeriman, it's all yours. Honor us. Thank you.
Thank you, President Joeriman. I'm originally from the US, was living up until just recently in Lviv, Ukraine, 10 years. My family, my wife, my two young daughters left Lviv just shortly before the invasion began. We are in Warsaw, Poland. After joining some clubs here, attending some meetings of the clubs in Warsaw, I realized there was a lot. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the outpouring of support and solidarity and willingness to help Ukraine. And so with the local clubs, I felt I could be instrumental here and helping facilitate that effort. So what I am doing, my club, they're just amazing people. They're going around the clock. Our past president, Oleksiy Gusev, is in touch. He's got probably 12 different operations running at any given time, including efforts outside of Rotary, but still networking within, with Rotarian contacts to get defensive gear, things like tactical vests, helmets, radios into Ukraine. And so that's a pretty monumental effort. What I'm focusing on here in Warsaw is an operation where we're getting medicines and medical supplies, consumables, things like gauze, tourniquets, splints into Ukraine. Briefly, the first couple days of this war, we were focused, our club, Lviv International, was focused on supplying our local hospitals, particularly 7 of the major ones. The military hospital was our first priority. I can say that they are stocked as of last update for 2 to 3 months. And most needs are met in Lviv where they were, but there's a constant influx of people. So what populations they were used to treating and had to be available for has perhaps doubled in size with all the internally displaced persons who've come to Lviv. Now, we are working with Roundtable and Freunde helfen in Germany. We're working with the district here, 2231 in Poland. And specifically, we're working with the Warsaw International Club, Wilanów, that has set up multi-currency accounts to receive donations. We are sourcing and purchasing all the medical equipment supplies here throughout Poland and in Germany. So far, our collective efforts have raised about 1.2 million euros. We have sent 10 trucks. Fortunately for us, one of the areas we've been engaged in over the last 5 years is medical aid, medical equipment, medical furniture, hospital beds, things like that, from the European Union into Lviv. So we already had these contacts and relationships, customs warehouses, and so that has proved to be really instrumental in getting this effort launched pretty quick. From day one, we already had the green corridor, customs-wise, and the warehouse and logistics to get everything in. And so that continues to be one particular strength of our club, and so we're really fortunate to have that system in place and to drive that kind of operation. And so what we continue to do is to reach out to Rotary clubs and make them aware that most of what's needed right now can be sourced and purchased in Germany and in Poland. So far, supplies of what I should back up here. Let me explain how we're getting our requests. The district in Ukraine is collecting from the various clubs, are getting information from their hospitals, and this is being actively updated. I believe I provided Andreas with that link, and I'll send it out again so that can be shared with everyone. So this is a regularly updated list of needs. And so each regional administration is going in and putting what they see their hospitals are asking for. So when the aid comes into Lviv, Lviv right now is serving more as a hub, because again, its needs are for the most part met. Then the Lviv Oblast or regional military administration is going to the warehouses. They're sorting, distributed by priority. So we're hands off on that part. All that information is being driven by the actual strategic need. So that gets exactly where it needs to go as quickly as possible. So we're just kind of serving as a point of contact. We get the requests, they get updated. We source and purchase that in Germany and Poland. And then we have, as I mentioned, a customs warehouse in Przemysl, Poland, that's run by one of our members, Maria Mlava. So we get a lot of dedicated space there for our effort. And then that's getting to Lviv and then distributed throughout the country. In a nutshell, that's how the operation looks. And so I can go into more granular detail or answer any particular questions anyone might have.
And the medical supplies that you're purchasing, they're available in Poland, or they're being shipped from Germany as well?
So far, I haven't been made aware of any shortages or anything that we were unable to source. The coordination with the purchasing teams, it's a complex operation. You got the accountants in there, you've got the people who are experts in procurement and have those relationships. So they're kind of operating autonomously, and I haven't heard anything of anything being in short supply except vests, tactical gear, and helmets. But again, that we're keeping outside, separate from this humanitarian project and effort.
Yeah, as you know, Rotary, because of our beliefs and our philosophy, we would not be able to get involved in supplying any military weapons. Humanitarian aid, food, clothing, medical supplies, obviously, we will do whatever we can. Military equipment, we can't get involved in that.
Right, and that's why we've been really careful to keep that separate from the medical aid efforts.
We keep hearing that there are upwards of 1 million Ukrainian refugees in Poland alone. How is that being handled? Specifically, since the majority of them are children, how is that being handled?
So there, in Warsaw, there are about 9 clubs. About, I think it's 6 of the clubs are working with through the intercountry committee that they have with Ukraine, and they have some of their district officers at the borders coordinating, and then with all the clubs that are in nearby cities like Rzeszów, and so they are running a pretty expansive operation. They're meeting these refugees at the border. They're organizing transport for them to various cities in Poland. And the club that we're working the closest with here, Wilanów, we see it all the time, these requests, even from other Rotarians in Ukraine, giving us a heads up that their families are on the way. So there's a pretty big effort going on to provide transportation and accommodations. I know pretty much every member in the Wilanów Club here in Warsaw has opened their houses, their homes to the refugees. The government has a pretty expansive program as well. When Ukrainians are at the border, they're asked if they have accommodations, and so that there is a government level effort to set them up. I mean, these are, not perhaps the best situations. You'll have 8 families in a 2-bedroom apartment, things like that. But through Rotary here in Poland, they're trying to resettle these people, get them into a little bit better suitable living conditions. So, and meanwhile, while the Polish speaking clubs are focused on that, the 3 clubs, there's a German speaking club, an English speaking club, we're focusing on the medical aid. That's kind of how we're divvying up the responsibilities here.
So now Polish and Ukrainian are different languages. They're both Slavic, but they're still different languages. One uses the Latin alphabet, one uses the Cyrillic alphabet. How are the refugees able to cope, especially if they don't speak any Polish? How are they being able to cope in Poland?
Well, Warsaw, you just go out for a stroll, you go to the cafe, and you're bound to run in to Ukrainian families, and you see them sometimes just out with what I assume is their host family here. I hear English, I hear this kind of pidgin language. If it is mutually intelligible to a pretty great extent, being a speaker of both Ukrainian and limited Polish, I can tell you that they're able to understand each other. They can find a lingua franca, and then also English is used.
Assuming the worst case scenario, which none of us want to, do you think these refugees, like your family, do you see yourself going back to Ukraine, or do you think it's the beginning of a new life?
Just speaking personally, we have the opportunity to take the family to the United States. That would be going back for me, and that would be a new life for my wife and my kids. But my wife has such an infectious optimism. Whenever I've even mentioned the idea of, we can wait it out there if that's the goal, waiting it out. We can continue to our efforts in Rotary from there. The time difference would be a challenge, but other than that, we'd be amongst family there. We'd be on terra cognita, I guess. But she won't have it. She feels very certain that this is going to be over in the near term, not talking about years and potentially not even a number of months. And her optimism was just so infectious that I couldn't help but say, yeah, we'll stay here for now and see how this develops. And hoping, at least we're hoping, that in a month it'll be clear where our next move is. Ideally, we'd like to be able to go back. We left everything, pets, assets, our home, but here we feel close, at least geographically. And I should mention that 6 members of our club are now in Poland. So we feel that connection, being here, not too far away, and being able to interact on the ground. And even when we're not working on the medical aid, we get calls. We set Ukrainian families that are fleeing. We help find them places here. So that network and being here makes us feel like this is the place for us for right now. We can do the most good here, and we'll only consider whether we have to start a new life somewhere else when we absolutely see that we've lost our home. And I don't think it's there yet. And I think that we believe that soon we'll be able to go back.
Hopefully, we agree. Now, you mentioned that the Rotary clubs in Warsaw are cooperating and working together jointly to assist. Do you have any idea how are the Rotary clubs in Lviv working? Are they still operable? Are they still working together? Do you know?
They are. The challenge there is that our district 2232 has set up. They're trying to coordinate things at the district level. They have established a bank account for donations. Now, what I've seen from being present at district coordination meetings, in this situation, a lot of clubs are kind of clamoring for the funds that are available. They want it to go to their project or to the hospital. That's, they hear what their local hospitals need and what their contacts need. And it's an enormous, endless need. And so it's not that we've splintered off, it's just, or we've become silos. It's just, at least for our club, being an international club, we're leveraging our international contacts and we're really focused. And it takes all of our focus to manage this type of operation with the medical aid. You know, so there's a lot of emails and chats and meetings, and I think that we are sitting those out as a matter of necessity to really stay focused on what we're doing.
Okay, now,
and what little I see, they're still all operating, and you know, with the other clubs are Ukrainian clubs with Ukrainian speakers, so they're more focused on doing things inside of Ukraine.
how is the food situation in Ukraine?
Well, Lviv has no significant shortages. The cities that are under more direct attack, that are being encircled, they have food shortages, but I couldn't speak, you know, knowledgeably as to how critical or serious those food shortages are. And today, a number of citizens from Kharkiv and Mariupol and Chernihiv, they are being evacuated. So hopefully that'll ease the pressure on the food shortage, but I don't have numbers.
How would you suggest that Rotarians, especially in the United States, because shipping things would be, you know, cost prohibitive, you know, transportation across the Atlantic and time and everything else. So how would you suggest that donations be made? You mentioned that in Warsaw they have a bank account. You mentioned that your district, what is it, 2230, I think you said?
2232.
2232, thank you. That they have an account in Lviv. What would you suggest?
Well, again, from seeing what's going on with the district, there's a number of challenges with the monies that are going to be on. This is the district account. It's a Raiffeisen Bank account. It's a Kiev address. There are, first of all, there are very specific banking laws in Ukraine, and before any money, and I can tell you this from experience with our club, anything purchased, there's really strict banking laws, and pretty much anything that needs to be purchased outside of Ukraine cannot be done from a Rotary account inside Ukraine. On top of that, banks are imposing pretty severe limits on how much can be withdrawn daily. And then there's also concerns with going forward, how stable the banking system is going to be, and if those funds, once are, you know, on that account, are going to be available. So, and our club also has an account established, but we're trying, for our club account, we're trying to just direct only a small amount of funds there for buying things like thermal blankets and diapers, things that are available in Ukraine, which we can still purchase and source. For the type of medical needs that the hospitals throughout Ukraine need, those need to be purchased outside of Ukraine. And the quickest, easiest way to do it, in our operation, there's two ways to do it. There's the official Rotarian account. It's a little bit more bureaucratic, but you know it stays in Rotary, and you know the type of accounting and bookkeeping that Rotary requires of us. So that the option, we, in all currencies, British pounds, US dollars, Rotary in Warsaw, Wilanów, has that account set up. We also have through Roundtable another account in Germany. And so we leave it up to individual donors, however they want to do it. Both accounts are active, operating, and the purchases are being taken from both those accounts, the account in Warsaw and the account in Germany. But for clubs that want to have that level of accounting and accountability, I suppose, that comes with funds on a Rotary account, then the best option is the Wilanów Warsaw international clubs account set up specifically for this purpose. One caution, I see that you also put our logistics warehouse. Because of the sheer volume that's been coming in, there are bottlenecks, and so our warehouse has had to kind of pivot from the normal types of things that would be received there. So anybody considering sending shipments, that's certainly welcome, and we're enormously thankful. But food, clothing is not something being processed anymore at our customs warehouse. We have switched over to focus on medical goods only. And so to facilitate that process, the warehouse is dedicated just to medical items. There's a more specific list, which I will get you, of what can be accepted and what can't. And then anybody shipping that wants to arrange shipment, we provide all the forms ahead of time, so we know what's coming and all the customs paperwork will go smoothly. We do have clubs that are chartering jets and finding ways to get aid on cargo planes and landing in Rzeszów and then being taken to Przemysl there on the border.
That would be very useful to the Rotary clubs in Europe, yes, especially. But so, okay, so Andreas has that information. He's going to get it out to everyone who's interested, and it'll go along with the recording of this. Is there anyone who has a question in the chat room? I know we have I think about 50 people on board. Anybody? Just jump in.
You're right.
Yes, go ahead. Dr.
Okay.
George, go ahead.
Thank you, James, for the presentation. One of the question I have is really concerning the mental health of folks living where they are used to, where they were born, to move to other countries. Because for me, during the Nigerian Biafran Civil War in 1967 to 70, I was just 10 years old. And I remember how we were running from where we lived, not even knowing where we are going. No food, no money, no nothing. So it can be very traumatic. So I'm wondering if any provision can be made, because those are very important issues that has to be dealt with to avoid what people might go suffer down the line.
I think that you're going to see an effort to focus on mental health, counseling issues, or just in general helping people adjust and assimilate. But what I can say, I've lived a few times in Warsaw. Both my daughters were born here. There is this very significant Ukrainian community in Warsaw and in Poland in general that has been here, has roots set down before the situation. The similarity in their cultures, you see this throughout. I mean, expressed in a lot of ways. The mentality, traditions, even cuisine, they're similar enough to where it's not such a cultural shock. But of course, in any situation where you're just leaving your home unexpectedly, it's going to be traumatic. But I think you'll see. I'm not aware of what efforts specifically are going on. I've spoken with a few families who relocated recently, and speaking of families, sorry, they do have at the cultural centers and social centers here in Warsaw programs, day programs and daycare for young Ukrainian children, and volunteers are staffing these, and so they're full day programs, and then what you would see in a standard pre-K type of institution, and they have Ukrainians and Poles that are volunteering for that to help them adjust. Again, given the similarity of cultures, the large support network of Ukrainians here, there's a Ukrainian NGO that's been operating throughout Poland for some time, Ukraiński Dom. There's a lot of outreach to reach these people, help them adjust, help them know what's available to them And so that is helping them adjust, but I think long-term, there will have to be efforts on addressing some of the mental health effects of this crisis.
Thank you.
Okay, that's reassuring to hear that that Poland is making these accommodations for children, because as George just said, they're always the first victims, and they suffer more than anyone else, because as George just said, whatever trauma they suffer as a child is a lifelong cross they have to bear. It's something that they don't forget. It affects the rest of their life. So that's good to hear. All right. Anyone else have a comment, question?
Yes.
Please join in. Just jump in.
I have one.
Helen, go ahead.
Helen Reisler. Are you working in any way with the Rotary Peace Fellows? Are they helping you out in any way?
Thank you. At this moment, I'm not aware. I know that inside Ukraine, one of our good friends, Dirk Lustig, is working in the Ukrainian Peace Fellows, but within the framework of our specific efforts, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of what that cooperation would look like.
May I add that the Rotary Peace Fellows have met from day one and have organized 3 major areas of response, one being to organize a team of trauma experts among themselves. And you should be hearing that information soon. The letter just went out 2 days ago to all the Peace Fellows, and they're aware of the urgency and also the long-term needs. So stay tuned, and I'll send you separately the letter, which has some contact information, and then you can disseminate that yourself. And
that would be good, Francis. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can
they're
picture them helping out with
definitely
the children too.
I'm sorry?
That would be a source to help out with the children too. I can picture
That's
that.
exactly
Yeah.
the trauma that they're talking about is somewhat with children, but also with adults, different expertise and different experiences worldwide.
I'm glad to hear that they're
Yeah.
getting involved.
And thank you again for supporting the Rotary Peace Centers.
Mhm.
Now, the number of refugees from Ukraine into Poland, I believe is approximately 1 million now. Do you think there's a possibility of some pushback by Poles with all of these refugees in their country?
Given the cultural ties between the countries, given the generally good relations, given the fact that Ukrainians have already had a pretty significant presence in this country, the Poles are used to them. They've welcomed them even before this, and this is a unifying event to where I don't expect any but a very, very small minority of voices to you know, give any pushback. These people have really good ties, and certainly this is going to start straining things, and I can't predict the future. But if there were any 2 countries that could overcome the type of stress and strain that an influx of refugees would place, these are it.
Mm-hmm.
James, Andreas.
A couple questions for you, if I may. My name is Joseph Altschull. I'm from the Rotary Club of Weston in Broward County, Florida, which is south the Miami area. We have about 10 members of our club who are present. And what I'd like to know is, you know, number one, how you know, we're not a huge club, but we're going to be meeting as a board tonight. How can we make the most direct difference to help? And you know, looking at the account numbers, I know that one of the questions that I was asked from one of my club members was, is it secure? I see we have some account information to the Rotary Club of Warsaw with what are really long numbers. I'm assuming those PL numbers are account numbers, but you know, how can we make the most direct difference? And is this a secure way to get funds to you or to the people who need it?
Well, at least limiting my answer to our efforts, between purchasing, sourcing, and facilitating shipments. The donating to Wilanów through those accounts is the best way and the quickest way, because the procurement process is constantly going on, and the updates are in real time. In fact, if any of you go to visit those links, it's we keep the tables bilingual, because those we've been requested by the regional authorities in different cities. When their hospitals, they want to add that stuff in real time, and so there's those needs are a bilingual table. They try to put them into English, but we've been asked to leave the city names so they can self-organize and update those tables. So the quickest, most effective way is, I believe, donating to what's being collected, and that's a Rotary account. Wilanów is a long-standing club. It's not, this was not a fly-by-night club. They're a pillar they are the international club in Warsaw. Those long numbers, that's just the European banking system. That's completely secure. I don't want to lie and tell you the amount of money that's come across that, but so far, like I said, in total, we've raised 1.2 million euros, and so far, no issues.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thanks for all the work you're doing.
Joseph, that's a great question, by the way. I mean, that's a concern of anyone. We've all been burned knowing, with charities and donations having to misappropriate. So it's a great question that you asked. Thank you very much. Good. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Scarlett,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you so much. One of our participants today, Anton Dimitrov in Florida, the Western Club, shared an organization with me in New York City that sponsors flights full of supplies. And maybe some of us could meet with them or investigate what they do. And maybe Mr. Dimitrov would explain them to us a little bit better.
Scarlett, thank you. Yeah, I was about to jump in. So let me just spend a minute to give you a complete view of what I have to the moment. So my wife read an article in a local online newspaper talking about a Ukrainian family that collects medication and other help that is then delivered to Ukraine. So I reached out to that individual, and here's what I learned from him. They collect a specific list of medicines, and I have a link to this file. It's in Google Sheets, open to anyone. For the most part, this is just regular medication, anesthetics, and gauzes and what have you. And what they do, they load a truck, and as soon as it is loaded, volunteers from Ukrainian American truckers community, so local Ukrainian truckers, they drive the truck to New York. And then Nova Poshta Global, which is Ukrainian version of DHL or FedEx or UPS, they sponsor one airplane a day to deliver the collected goods to Poland, from where the volunteers from Razom from Ukraine charity organization, which is what I understood, deliver to Ukraine and distribute. So my immediate question to the group is if anyone is aware of this Razom for Ukraine charity organization. Is it an organization Rotary could partner with? Any obstacles in doing that? So at the very least, we here in South Florida could also donate these medication, and then just use whatever established route and means that they have to deliver and distribute. But I wonder if there is a bigger opportunity to leverage that and kind of bump up the donations.
Thank you so much, sir, for your eagerness to be helpful. I think if you were to reach out to St. George's Church here in Manhattan, It's a big cathedral type structure. They're very, very active. I've dropped myself off several shopping bags full of clothing, and I'm collecting from neighbors. I think if you were to call them, they're located on East 7th Street, St. George's Church. It's a Ukrainian church, and they're very, very active in all of this. They seem to know about everything that's going into the Ukraine from at least the New York metropolitan area.
Anton, if I may ask you a question, and perhaps James, you could help us out with this. In dealing with medical supplies, is there a problem in sending medical supplies, James? Once it gets to the country, do medical supplies have to go through any kind of immigration or inspection or anything like this, which could hold up the process?
In Ukraine, most prescription medication is actually over the counter. This is one of the culture shocks that you go through when you move to Ukraine. You go into the pharmacy and tell them what you want. Now, so that is not an issue. Now with regulated medicines, when you're talking about things like morphine, that does require a specific process where the receiving end institution has to file some extra paperwork. So, but we have not had any issue with that. Again, our logistics partner in this is really versed in getting this kind of aid across. They've been doing it for many, many years. So I'm not aware of all the nuances of that, but I have not, so far there's not been any issues of anything being held up at the border, any delays or any paperwork that wasn't properly filled. So we know they're doing their job and they understand the process.
Have you, James, have you heard any discussions while you're in Poland, in Warsaw especially, of this conflict expanding, maybe involving, Poland and Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Moldova?
Yeah, you overhear this in conversations, people speculating, but we've got the 82nd Airborne in Rzeszów. I don't think that anybody's realistically thinking that they're in immediate danger. Just thinking forward, I think there's a question on everybody's minds: what comes next if Russia succeeds in taking most, if not all, of Ukraine and putting them right up against the border of this country. But like I said, it's a NATO country. We've got the 82nd in Rzeszów. More troops were deployed. You got B-52s, everything patrolling. So I've heard nothing more than speculation and parlor talk.
You may not be able to answer this at all, and maybe it's unfair my asking, but has anyone heard anything from any Rotarians in Russia?
Well, I can tell you that going a few years back, our club is international, and so we see things a little different and don't maybe have all the same sentiments or allegiances that Ukrainians have. But I can tell you, whenever we've wanted to reach out to Russian clubs or youth through RILA, for example, we have faced very stern feedback, pushback, and have been told that if we want to do a program like that, we'll be ostracized and jeopardize our community ties. Now, not everyone feels that way, but being a charity club, we really have to stay in tune with our community, and knowing that they'll continue to want to trust us and to give to us and trust us when we come do a project. There have been some suggestions of reaching out to Rotary clubs in Russia, but the last major discussion I saw on this was a petition sent around to exclude Russia from the Rotary system. Our club voted, well, in unison with the rest of the clubs, but with a dissenting opinion report attached to it, where we said for unity, we will go with this decision, but with understanding and the hope that civil society organizations are going to be the bedrock of any kind of change in Russian society, so that we shouldn't shut them out completely. We shouldn't rule out any kind of communication with them, because if there's any force for change in Russia, I believe it's organizations like Rotary, and maintaining those international contacts is important. But you understand the kind of sentiment that's running high in Ukraine right now. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, and I hope that we do see that change. But people feel very wounded and betrayed, and so there was a petition to remove Russia from the Rotary international system.
Mhm. Okay, I don't know if any Rotarians in the United States have heard that. I have not, but.
This was a district initiative.
Oh, it was a district
I believe
initiative from Western Ukraine.
I believe there's also concerns about the communication from if they were to contact the Rotarians in Russia, the Russia having access to their communications to everything else, it might do more damage than good. So that's what I heard, that was one of the reasons why nobody's engaging the Rotarians in Russia, because they also have fears about, the lines being tapped, their communications being traced. So there's a worry that it might do more damage than good.
There is that concern. That's a real concern.
May I just comment, because I'm Russian and an immigrant to the US. I'm also half Ukrainian and have relatives in Ukraine. But one of my classmates is actually part of Rotary Club of Moscow, and I'll be happy to reach out to him directly to see what the situation is. More objectively, Russian government have recently passed the law that any help at all that Russian citizens provide to Ukraine would be considered treason, and it will be punished by the law. It's going to be a felony. Companies that portray and convey opinions different from the direction of the government or have ties to the West, and the Rotary would be one of them, would be declared as foreign agent and banned. And so what Levent said, it will constrain the charitable activities that the local club would do. So maybe it wasn't that prudent for Rotary to be that active in helping in these efforts. But whatever we could do outside of Russia, we should. Russia is not, I just want to say that Russia is not Putin and Putin is not Russia. As Lindsey Graham said yesterday, let's free the people of Russia and Ukraine from this
Absolutely
individual.
Okay. Большое спасибо, Anton. Thank you.
I have one.
Levent, go ahead, please, go ahead.
One of the things that can we do, what's being done to stop the invasion, stop the war, which would be basically a way to save lives. And I think that's, we spend a lot of time, which is right, about supplying the people with medical supplies and et cetera, and also focus on the refugees. And one of the things that, to save lives is to end the war, and also another thing is it also allows people, hopefully in the short term or long term, to return home, because one of the things that nobody wants to be a refugee per se. And I think, it's an opportunity for Rotary, if we are real peace builders, to, determine what is our role in this whole thing about stopping wars and invasions, etc. And so just as a thought, and also, in the short term, what can we do? And one of the things in some of our conversations with the people there is, for example, is about the no-fly zone, and as a way of saving lives. And I think that's, in my mind, a key thing as far as the purpose of what we're doing is to save lives. And so just as a thought, and I think, consider what can we do as Rotarians in our way of for world peace. So thank you very much, by the way.
In terms of the humanitarian side of this and refugees, I'm from Canada, and I'm like looking for our Rotary Club. How can we assist? Because there's obviously a huge displacement of people, especially women and children. And how can we assist? And maybe this is just too early at this moment to be able to have any concrete answers. How can we assist to help home people, even if it's on a temporary basis in the various countries? And how can Rotary be an instrumental part of that?
Earlier, I just mentioned that there was an effort going in Warsaw that was being handled by the Polish clubs, but I can send that email because they're working with the Disaster Response Fund and the Warsaw Cluster Fund. So they're tapping into very specific pools of money, and they are looking to help Ukrainian citizens that have come to Warsaw City and the area. They are very focused. And they're working with the city authorities, and they're the ones best equipped to handle the refugee issues here. They are accessing very specific district funds for that.
Well, I could give a response to Phyllis's question if you wish, since I'm also in Ontario. And
Go ahead.
The Burlington, Ontario Rotarians are taking the lead on this project, which they hope will spread across Canada. And that is to work with the Canadian government and do home hosting for refugees that are brought potentially from Ukraine. So you can reach out to the Burlington Rotary Club for more details, but I know that I've been involved in discussions, and our senior leaders from Rotary Canada are involved, and hopefully we can work with the Canadian government to provide some home hosting and some assistance to these people if and when they're brought to Canada, or those who are. And I think the other thing that we forget is the obvious Rotary Foundation that is in need of funds, and they've already committed to disaster relief grants to all of the districts. They're committing $50,000 per club district in the Ukraine affected area, and $25,000 to other affected districts who are providing aid. So let's not forget donations to our own Rotary Foundation. Tax receipts are issued, and then that money will flow through with the adequate stewardship of our foundation people to the districts and the clubs in the affected areas. And we're even looking at possibly applying for a district grant here in Ontario to help fund bringing these Ukraine refugees to Canada and home hosting them and getting them set up with whatever they may need. So let's not forget those two things.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Thank you, James. Thank you for your time. We love what you have done and what you are doing, and keep your family safe. What can I say? Boże błogosławić Ukrainie. God bless Ukraine. And with that, everyone, thank you. Stay safe. We'll see you next week.